and welcome to this episode of Season 4 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham. So let's go straight into the weather report. Sweyn, how are you, and how's the weather where you are? You're on mute.
Right, that's a good start. I'm in Orkney as usual, in Kirkwall, and the weather is it's kind of blowy and it's quite clear and it's quite bright. I've got a friend up visiting, so it's quite nice for him to get some good weather when he's in the county. So how about
That's good. Well, here in Birmingham, I've got very cloudy skies, and it's been raining, so I'm not pleased with that, and I have to go out later, so I'm going to have to be wrapping up warm. But I've got my woolly jumper on and a long sleeve on under that, so and a nice blanket around my
Oh, that sounds
waist,
good.
so
Yes, that's the way to
it's
do it.
nice and warm, yeah, and preserving the energy of the world, not putting on too much other
Retrofitting your
heat
blanket
sources.
rather than
I
switching
am,
the heating on. Yes,
yes,
good for you.
good example for everybody. So we'll go straight into the dates. We are going to have a guest hopefully today, but she's not able to join us until later on in the show, so we will welcome her when she arrives. But in the meantime, we'll get on with some stories and dates. So dates.
Yep.
The first one was actually from last week, but it just made me laugh when I read it, so I felt we had to include it. And on this day in 2019, on 21st November in 2019, Elon Musk launched Tesla's electric Cybertruck with shatterproof windows that, when demonstrated on stage,
Guess
shattered.
what? Oh well, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know how it's doing nowadays, but yeah. So that
I
was a
think that I think
funny
I'm
one.
not so sure if it's got shatterproof windows or not, but I think the whole electric truck um in, initiative, Tesla and others, I think it's come a long way since in the last few years. And what used to seem impossible in electrification terms now seems at least conceivable that they might get there with the range and the amount of
Yeah,
battery they need. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's great to see the technology advancing, but I'm balancing that now with the climate emergency and the
Mm.
amount of energy that it consumes. And so if tech is going to eat energy and eat the planet, then I'm not going to be so keen really to promote it as I was. But we can have that discussion as we go on. Moving on today's date, 27th of November in 2013. The highest grossing animated film of all time, Frozen, haha, for the weather, starring Idina Menzel and Kristen Bell, was released. And I don't think I've ever, I certainly haven't sit through a full viewing of it,
I
but I
certainly
think
haven't
I've
seen
seen
it.
bits of it.
I mean, I know the iconic song because that's impossible to
hmm
avoid,
hmm
but no.
Yeah, maybe we'll have a viewing someday. It
And
sounds.
I don't have a screen share for that. I'm going to say that that's for
No, no, no.
copyright reasons, not
Yeah,
because I forgot to
absolutely.
bring one up.
No, 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 absolutely not. Okay, so hello to everybody who listens to Frozen and is keen on that, and stay warm. Okay, and today is also what's called Cyber Monday. Now, this wasn't something I'd heard of a long time ago, but it became it has become apparently the online equivalent to Black Friday, the day that people are encouraged to shop till they drop, and offers a way for smaller retail websites to compete with larger chains. Since its inception, it has become an international marketing term used by online retailers around the world. And this is the entry we've got is from Wikipedia. Um, and according to a 2009 Guardian article, UK online retailers are now referring to Cyber Monday as the busiest internet shopping day of the year, commonly falling on the same day as the US Cyber Monday. So today is Cyber Monday. Sweyn, are you going to be indulging yourself?
I very much doubt it. But I guess it's an interesting. It's good to have a hook to for smaller retailers to hang their offerings on. It's good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if anybody gets something interesting today on Cyber Monday and they want to talk to us about it, if it's anything to do with digital inclusion and online communications, we'd love to hear from you and have you on the show to talk about it. Okay, and then later this week, in Birmingham, the first ever UK charity camp, not the first unconference for charities, but the first UK charity camp is happening, organised by our colleagues at what's it say on the screen?
DXW.
DXW, yeah, that's the one. And the guy we know best is Harry Harold, who we've met at previous other unconferences. And this is an unconference for charities and voluntary organizations. The blurb says it's a space for conversations, not for profit, free to participants, open to anyone, with travel bursaries for those who need them. So well done, UK Charity Camp, for that. They're expecting a range of third sector folk to attend, from trustees to people at smaller charities who have to do digital as well as everything else, to heads of digital at larger organisations. So that's in Birmingham this week on Thursday, and I'm going. Colleagues are going. Friends are going. So it'll be
Good day.
a real, a thing full of people that I know well, Sweyn. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
it's great.
yeah,
Great.
good to see it
Be a
happening.
great day.
Yeah. And so we'll skip over the welcome to our guest because she's not here with us yet, and we will carry on to some of our stories and come back to Ariel Tai when she's able to join us later on, hopefully. So the first story is not a very happy one, but it's happening. Black people left out of data set that shapes AI systems of today. And this story is from Twitter, and it says that Black people are left out of the data set that shapes the AI systems of today. Our culture, languages, and activities are not represented in the internet's largely white European data sources. Canadian psychotherapist Dr. Joan Samuels Dennis, PhD, is a multi-award winning speaker and authority on trauma recovery, reconciliation, and forgiveness. And we're going to show a short video clip where she talks to William A. Adams, D&I innovator, diversity and inclusion innovator, software engineering trailblazer, award-winning DEI innovator, and philanthropist. So if you can run the video, Sweyn, thanks.
We're on the outside of the building site, looking through the peepholes, seeing what's going on inside. We're not even carrying the bricks. It sounds dire. It's like, what? No, come on. I can tell you.
We've always been the builders. Haven't we
No,
been the builders?
we're not there. And I'll tell you why. So all the AI stuff that's being built right now, which is the foundation for all the next level of stuff,
Yes.
our data's not in there. Okay. So for example, if I create a data set of languages,
Yes.
okay, where do you think I got all the sources of that material? Right? Do you think I went to Africa and said, hey, speak into this microphone, brother, we want to record all of your activities, your languages, your business processes? Did we do that? No. We went to the internet, which is largely white European,
Yeah.
and we collected all that data.
Yeah.
So the corpus of knowledge of humanity does not include Black people.
Well, there you go. It's undeniable, really, and not a
The
great,
age-old problem of representation of all bits of the diversity of humankind in new developments. It's the age-old story, and very depressing to see it all come round one yet again in an area which is probably even more important to be representative than many things we've had in the past.
Well, it's going to influence so much. A lot of decision making, even now, is happening automatically, shaped by AI.
Yeah,
and it's very concerning.
I love. I love the graphics on that.
Huh.
Video.
Well, the story, did AI, purveyors go to Africa just to kind of harvest, all the multiple languages in that continent? No, didn't.
No.
It's very, it's a short kind of clip that says so much. Won't be news to our Black and Asian colleagues, but maybe will spark some conscience in others that might be able to influence that. So we'll watch that. And I hadn't heard of William Adams before, and I've talked to other people about him, but he seems like a really interesting person, and great to just hear that this being put out there front and center. So yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, the next story is a kind of more mundane one, but one of our kind of usual sort of stories, supporting older carers who are digitally excluded, including offering non-digital support. And this is from Carers UK. They've published a new best practice guide highlighting ways in which organizations can best support older carers who do not have access to the internet. As we know, research shows that those over 75 are most likely to be offline. However, as more services move online, being digitally included is no longer just about having an internet connection, a device, and some basic digital skills. It's about doing a range of activities, being able to do them, including accessing health information and resources to help with caring. And they did a survey with organizations supporting older carers, such as local carers organizations and local charities. And they found there's a number of issues faced by older carers who are digitally excluded, including loneliness and isolation. But they found one of the main barriers faced by older carers in accessing technology was a lack of confidence. And actually, I can speak to that, Sweyn, as I often talk about her, my own mum. You know, she's proficient on her iPad, but it wouldn't work last week, and the family eventually got it working for her. But she lacked confidence in getting it to work again, and it's upsetting, because it's become an essential tool in her social life, and if she can't make it work, then she feels left out of things. So it's not a good thing.
I had an example last week of a friend of mine as well, who's getting on in years, but very, very capable and very great guy, and got a phone call from him saying, would I help him because the foreign currency that he wanted to get, he couldn't get any other way than online.
Right.
So and he was kind of panicking a bit, and I said, oh yes, I mean, I really don't mind, and I had to say I would come the next day because I wasn't around that day, but it was great because I got a phone call first thing in the morning saying, I've done it. So
great.
I like that story, and I don't know whether my whether knowing I was around to help in the background made any difference or not, but he managed to sort it out himself.
I think it does help if you know that you can get help from somewhere. It kind of gives you some confidence to keep going. And I think that was the same with my mum. Yesterday we had the usual weekly family Zoom call, and we kind of came to the end of the hour or whatever, and we wanted to reconnect, and she was able to reconnect without difficulty the second time. So a bit of practice and confidence does help. So
absolutely.
So this guide makes a number of recommendations to help organizations supporting older carers who may not be online by helping them to use technology or providing opportunities to receive support in person. So they're suggesting offering non-digital support, which is the in-person activities, as our friend Paul Clayton often talks about, having some face-to-face support. And as I've done myself with colleagues in Birmingham, South Birmingham and Northfield, in-person activities at a variety of different times may result in more people taking part. Offering multiple ways of joining a session, from joining on Zoom to being in the room, may also increase inclusivity. This non-digital support may be particularly important for some carers, including those living in rural areas, and we have evidence of that previously, where opportunity to connect with people in person may be more difficult due to limited public transport. So here's something new coming into the mix, where if you're living in a rural area, transport may affect your ability to be digitally included. Also, obviously, connectivity areas. So they're suggesting proactively contacting carers who are physically isolated, including those in remote or rural areas, may ensure carers do not feel cut off from others. They suggest promoting care support services to those who are digitally excluded by distributing leaflets to local organisations such as libraries, GP practices, community centres or places of worship, running a stall at a local community event, or dropping into existing older people's groups or dementia cafes to promote the services available to carers. And again, Sweyn, this is something I've experienced of, it's great to be online, but if you don't know that there are services online because you're not online, having a leaflet to bridge that gap can be the difference between making it happen and not.
I've just noticed a paragraph in the kind of background of the report saying that they found that COVID-19 did not, in fact, produce a sea change in older people's use of digital technology, while just under a quarter, 24%, of over 75s in England increased their internet usage during the pandemic. This was mainly driven by existing users going online more often. So there were some statistics around the pandemic saying that use of the internet had gone up, but it might not be the people who are most excluded that were responsible for that increase. It could be people who were already relatively confident doing more online. So that was quite an interesting point as well.
Yeah. absolutely. So good.
It says also a few months into the pandemic, more than 2 in 5, like its fractions. This report, 42%, people over age 75 were still non-users. 40% still of over 75 still not using online stuff at all, even during the pandemic, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure those matters are ongoing, and it's great to see a carers organization producing a good practice guide that might help others to improve their service. Okay, moving on, we've got a story from insidehousing.co.uk. They're saying there's a large landlord going to install full fibre broadband in 16,000 homes. That's a very nice number to hear. This is the Complete Technology Group, CTG, working with Vivid to optimize full fibre network solutions for 16,000 homes in its high-rise blocks. They manage 34,000 homes in Hampshire and the surrounding area, and they're going to work with their sister company as well as third-party internet service providers and provide advisory and planning services to Vivid. They'll then audit all work undertaken. And this infrastructure is a single open access plug and play infrastructure, which means residents can still choose between broadband providers but face less disruption because only a single installation takes place. And the chief executive of CTG, Chris McLean, said, "We understand how challenging it is for housing providers like Vivid to respond to the high volume of requests they receive from ISPs, internet service providers, looking to enter their buildings and then oversee fibre installations from a compliance and safety perspective. So they're going to do the heavy lifting with all stakeholders, including ensuring hyper-fast, hyper-reliable broadband is delivered to all residents without compromising on safety or standards." So that's nice.
Great. Yeah.
Access.
It's a known
arrangement.
problem providing decent Wi-Fi without constantly tearing the walls apart in high-rise, multi-flat blocks. So that looks like a great approach to actually just put the wiring in, and then as and when tenants want a connection, they can get it from whoever, just the same as before. But at least all the physical work has been done as a one-off. So that looks great.
You would think that this would be standard by now, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, I think the problem is probably that it's a kind of retrofit problem, because we're not actually building new high-rise blocks very often these days, except for offices, which will be wired. So I guess it's just gradually getting around to all the blocks that are still around that was in the past.
Well done to
That's
CTG.
good. It's a great one. Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah, good model for others to follow. Talking about models, the next story is about Manchester, and the headline is "Manchester leads the way on digital inclusion," and this is from Public Sector Executive magazine. So it's kind of small print, hard to read on the screen.
This is the one I can't zoom in on without turning the page, which kind of defeats the purpose. But there we are.
So the story, which we will provide a link to on the YouTube notes after the show, describes the comprehensive approach to shaping a more equitable and connected community in Manchester, with some nice pictures there as well. And if you are you able to flick the page at all, Sweyn?
I can, all too easily.
Okay. Some nice pictures. I thought there were people. Is there another page? No, not go back. No, that was another story. Okay. I thought there was somebody on the screen that I knew, so I was going to say hi to them, but they're not there. So, yeah. So well done, Manchester, and yeah, we hope others also catch up. So, the next story is from internetforall.gov. And the headline is, "When we say Internet for All, we mean all, a Digital Inclusion Month recap." And this was from, I think this is a story from the US, looking at the URL, your internetforall.gov, I think is the US.
Yeah, it is.
US
also
story.
December the 27th, US date format.
Okay, yeah, all right then. So, yeah, story from the US about a national spotlight on digital inclusion with the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, showing, they actually say that, encouraging everyone everywhere in America to get involved in creating a more inclusive digital future. And the Secretary's remarks were shared with hundreds of companies, organizations, and individuals across the country participating in special events and campaigns designed to promote and increase digital inclusion and equity in their communities. So this is just a roundup for the month for the US. They honoured the community voices shaping the future of digital equity, sharing their thoughts on how the NTIA National. I don't know what NTI stands for. Anyway, something important in internet inclusion should design and implement 2 components of its Digital Equity Act programs to create better outcomes for all. NTIA honoured their efforts by emphasising the crucial role community input continues to play in achieving digital equity. And the common themes that emerged were published in a blog post on the Internet for All website to inform and inspire fellow digital equity champions. Another part of this, what happened that month, was digital equity for tribal communities. The tribal connectivity and digital equity teams in NTIA highlighted how tribal nations can create programs to connect to the internet. There was a tribal broadband connectivity program in the state of Maine, and a digital awardee, the state of Maine, and a digital equity expert. This call highlighted the unique challenges faced by tribes and how they can engage in NTIA programs such as the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program and the second round of TBCP program. I think if you're in the States and doing digital inclusion, Sweyn, all these acronyms would be familiar to you.
I've found NTIA. That means National Telecommunications and Information Administration, and it's a federal body which advises the president on telecommunications and information policy issues.
Okay, well, good to see this happening at the highest level then.
Yeah, that's part of the federal government in the US.
They also, Digital Equity Team identified nearly 30 technical or human-centered digital equity and inclusion resources for high-level dissemination by their public affairs team. There's a story about meeting communities where they are to a diverse range of engagements, listening sessions and community conversations. The team has connected with local news coalitions, creative economy workers, public service servants dedicated to helping veterans and aging populations, city councils, Hispanic serving institutions, and the list goes on. Sounds like there's a great amount of activity going on.
That's a long list.
And from coming from the White House, so it's it's a good high level engagement that others could imitate.
Great.
Okay.
Yes.
Well done, the US, for that, and we look forward to hearing more about some of those stories in the future. We go on to a story about Citizens Online, which is a UK network, and they talk about how they contribute to achieving the UN's Global Sustainable Development Goals. In 2012, as we know, the UN produced 17 Sustainable Development Goals to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. And they relate to global environmental, political, and economic challenges. And this was a story leading around the United Nations Day, exploring how Citizens Online work contributes to these goals, particularly around obviously digital exclusion. But they're saying lack of access to the online world is more likely if linked to poverty, disability, and age. So they work at Citizens Online to support a digitally exclusive society by supporting people to improve digital skills and confidence, providing devices and connectivity for those who can't afford them, advocating for the recycling of devices to support a more sustainable circular economy, advising organizations on best practice to ensure that digital services are inclusive, and embedding digital inclusion into organizations and communities. So, it sounds like great work that one organization is doing. We know others are doing that as well. So it's a good role model, and it's good to tie them into the Sustainable Development Goals. Sweyn, wouldn't you think?
Very good idea. I think it just shows how complicated and interconnected the digital inclusion kind of issues are, with lots of other types of need and global aspirations, I guess. The Sustainable Development Goals are very, very wide, but it's good to see organizations like Citizens Online kind of tying their work to those goals directly, because I guess that makes it more likely that some progress can be made in some way.
Yeah, and it's one that others of us doing similar programs can copy, basically, because it makes it a higher level response. So
because there's no doubt that these goals that they've highlighted, particularly no poverty, good health and well-being, quality education. One really important way of furthering that sort of program is to make sure everyone has access to online services, because as we keep saying, at least if you have the option, they're likely to have a broader range of opportunities than if they don't have the option. So it's great to see.
Great. We'll skip over the next one because it's just a continuation of the same story. And we'll go on to a story that's headlined, "Unhappy with the ills and limitations that come with digital." And this is a story from India. And they're saying that 20 years ago, digital inclusion was positive. These days, everyone who is connected, and even those who are not connected, are unhappy with the ills and limitations that come with digital. It's so good to see that Digital Citizen Summit is making an attempt to democratize the internet. That was the original vision of the internet, but somehow, somewhere down the line, it became monopolized. So this is coming from India, as I say, the Digital Empowerment Foundation and the Center for Development Policy and Practice had their 5th Digital Citizen Summit 2023 with the theme "Commoning the Internet for a Vibrant Democracy." And this is an annual event organized by various experts, serving as a platform to bring together a diverse and dynamic gathering of scholars, academics, practitioners, civil society organizations, and government representatives who share a profound interest in technology, digital citizenship, and social innovation. The story goes on to say that South Asian countries, including India, have embraced technological advancements to meet the needs of a digital way of life. However, they say in recent years there's been a troubling increase in government agencies conducting mass surveillance, violating privacy, and limiting online free speech, which has been compounded by the rampant spread of misinformation and fake news. So the Digital Citizens Summit found pertinent to explore the various facets of digitalization in India and the challenges faced in enabling digital citizenship for all. So they go on to say there's significant disparities in access and digital literacy, and they're going to highlight the need for safe and secure internet access, digital literacy, and freedom of speech, as well as the importance of balancing regulations to prevent the misuse of digital platforms. So obviously these are matters affecting India, but they wouldn't be confined, I'd say, to India.
No.
I think other countries, there are various levels of risks in other countries as well. This summit also discussed the potential risks associated with AI decision-making, which refers back to our first story today, and the need for a participatory framework for social good. And the kind of last line that I picked out there was, most importantly, the event emphasizes the importance of envisaging a digital commons framework that is democratic, equitable, inclusive, and sustainable. So I think we can all agree with that.
Yes. I'm sorry, I lost the story from the screen, but
that's okay.
We'll make sure the link goes on the description to this video.
Good. Okay, and we're moving on to another story with the headline, again from Twitter: "Digital occasions are shaping a new era for designers." And again, we have a short video with this one. I don't know if you're able to show this one, Sweyn. It's Adriana Pereira, co-founder of The Fabricant, shares insights into the inclusive future of fashion through web-free technology. Now, this is something I hadn't heard before, so if we can show it, I think it'll be
I think I will be able to, but I'll need to find it.
Okay.
Well,
basically, the story showed kind of not people, garment makers, not even having to make garments, but just making them look on people, appear on people, to show what they look like. So without even having to produce them. So I hadn't thought of that before. It's like sim life kind of thing.
Oh yes,
you don't produce the actual item, just what it looks like.
I think that's where
there we go. Yeah, that's
going.
Where we are.
And let's see if we can get some stuff.
What do you think is the biggest obstacle to building an inclusive and accessible fashion industry?
I feel that actually, if anything, digital fashion is enabling that, right? And the reason why we as a company decided to go full force building on Web3 technology was because of that belief, the belief that actually this technology, which is giving ownership, which is giving access of monetization of digital fashion, will allow for young, smaller designers to have a captive public, an audience, and be able to make a living, right? Without having to ever produce physical fashion. So I think that is a belief, and is a belief that's materializing. And the more outlets for digital fashion that appear, the more that reality will become true and give access to a more decentralized and fragmented, fashion industry. So I think the barriers right now to make that full transition is what I call digital occasions. is technology enabling the moments that we are living digital lives, that we are able to dress digitally in a, I would say, pleasing way, but also in a user-friendly way. So, for example, right now in this call, there isn't yet a user experience that allows me to put a fashion item and show up I can produce a fashion item that's pretty cool. We have that, but I can't quite integrate in Riverside. So that's something that we are working, which is kind of the less sexy part of our business, is hardcore tech. It's like, how can we integrate our digital fashion collections into Riverside to the point that you will be willing to, have an exclusive item to show up here today. So I think that is the barrier that we are about to break, really, as more and more tools are becoming available, more and more platforms and technology integrations are becoming available. I was last week talking to the team of Google, and it's fascinating how the model is moving into 3D. So one of the things that we're talking about is that search that now is done in images, 2D images, they're already working on search on 3D models, right? And the moment that you have a search of 3D model, they have now a POC running with IKEA, that you search the sofa, you get the free model, and you can already project it in your living room, right? From the Google platform. And I think that those unlocks are just happening as we speak. And that is gonna make like the feasibility of the technology to become a business model, to therefore allow a young designer to build their community, to build the audience, monetize it, and have a living without ever having to produce anything physically.
I just think that's amazing. You're on mute still, Sweyn.
No, yes, that's really interesting. I never thought of that before.
Yeah, amazing.
I think our guest Ariella is trying
yes,
to
please.
join us, so we'll let her join now. And here she comes. Welcome, Ariel. You're live on the Dr. Tech Show.
How are you doing? I think not very light, am I? Hold on.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
You want me to let me switch my light on? I'll be 2 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. We can have spontaneity on here.
We can almost every week.
Yes, absolutely. Great. That's great, Ariel.
That's great. Yes. Okay.
Nice one. Hi, Ariel. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Great to be here.
We've just been covering a show about a piece about fashion, people producing fashion digitally without having to produce anything, an actual product as yet. So yeah, good timing, because I know you're
fashion items for Zoom, as it were.
That end of things as well. Let me just get up your notes, because I want to introduce you properly. Welcome to the show. We know each other through the Tech for Good UK, Tech for Good UK and Ireland Tech for Good Organisers Network. So it's great to have you on our show. Ariel, ladies and gentlemen, Ariel Tai from Promo Cymru has over 15 years of experience working with young people and communities, supporting them to have a voice and participate in the design and development of services. She's a leader in her field, carrying out a wide range of research and design projects, working across the public and third sector, including Public Health Wales, the Money and Pension Service and National Lottery Community Fund Wales. Her specialist area is co-designing services, ensuring they reflect the needs of people and are effective for providers. She's passionate about youth work and delivers training to young people in radio skills as part of the Wales Millennium Centre's radio platform. Ariel co-founded Tech for Good UK, as I said, a community of network organisers working to promote the use of technology for social good. She also hosts a podcast about using technology in youth information services. Her main area and passion is around designing digital youth services, making sure young people can access the support they need when they need it. Ariel, we would like to talk to you about your design digital services course and providing online media literacy skills to young people, amongst other topics. So you're very welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for the introduction.
You're very welcome. So what have you been doing today as kind of to tell people a typical day for you, a typical morning for you?
Yeah, so this morning actually, I was in a meeting for a project that we have working in an area of Wales, which is Gwent. And it's actually a project, a lottery funded project, which is 5 years long. And the whole idea is to support, to work with young people and put them in the lead of rethinking how systems and services are delivered in terms of mental health. So we're a year in now. It's a really, really exciting project because what we did is we actually recruited 10 young people to work on our project team with us. And they've now been actually trained as peer researchers, have delivered a piece of research into the needs of young people in Gwent. And we're just moving into ideation where we're going to start looking at, okay, so this is the needs. How do we actually do something to make a difference to young people's mental health support across Gwent? So yeah, that was a project meeting. So I might be doing something like that. I'm involved in lots and lots of projects. Really, a lot of them are around co-designing better services. Most of my work's in Wales, but not all of it. I work more widely than that as well.
Cool. So your the piece that I picked up online, besides us having met through the Tech for Good network, the Design Digital Services course. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is really exciting, actually. This is around, I suppose, how do we support organizations to, rethink their services using digital, but in the right way? And I know I'm speaking to the converted here, but there is, a really good approach to designing services, and that's based on like user-centered design principles, agile. We actually use the service design double diamond. And so this course and a lot of our work is around supporting third sector organizations to use this approach when they're thinking about how they're going to design digital services. So what we do in our course is you can get an introduction to the process, and we'll sort of use examples that are relevant to our sector. So I think what we found was that, if you search online, there's loads of stuff out there about how to use this process. But you might be looking at how somebody designed a mobile phone or an app, or something that actually for some of the organizations we work for is just not that relevant for them. So we want to show them more examples around actually how we redesigned a sexual health service, or how we redesigned how like a food bank is now engaging with people who use it. Those sorts of examples that we can relate to better. So our course is very, I suppose, bespoke and sector specific. So you learn about the approach, but then if you want to, we've actually got opportunities to take people on a 10-week design sprint. So we'll support you along the whole process. So you'll do some research into user needs. You'll work on a challenge that your organization is facing. We'll then work with you to build some mini prototypes of how you're going to test your new service, and then support you to actually sort of test it as well. So it's, giving the organizations the understanding, the theory, but then also giving them the tools to have a go at something that they're working on.
Wow. And for listeners and viewers who may not know what double diamond is or sprint, can you explain those terms, please? Yeah,
so the double diamond, it's the one that we use. We've sort of taken it from the Design Council's double diamond, and it's a 4-step process really for going from a challenge to actually designing something, designing a solution or a service. And what it's really good at is that the 4 steps. So you first discover. So this is really about understanding need, speaking to service users, and working out actually what is the real challenge and need. There we go. And then it moves.
Thanks, Sweyn.
Thank you so much. Then it moves through into define. So now we've understood more about our service users and what the challenges are. We actually move in and sort of define in that area in the middle of the diamond an area to focus on. And this helps you like reshape, like what you originally thought the problem was at the very beginning might have actually changed by now. So when you get to that definition, you can much more clearly say, this is the problem that our service users are experiencing. How might we solve this with, say, a digital solution? And it doesn't always have to be digital. This can be used for anything.
Yeah.
When you move into the develop phase, it's all about testing lots of different ideas on a very, very small scale. So again, you're not jumping to this big, expensive solution. What this process shows us is actually the idea is that we start testing things. And only when you've gathered positive results from your tests that, that indicate this is actually working, this is solving the problem that I set out to solve, do you move then down into the last bit of the diamond, which is to deliver, which is where you sort of scale up your solutions. It's just a really excellent approach that breaks down the process for designing something. So we just don't just jump ahead to that end expensive solution, I suppose, that might not even work.
And how do you persuade time-poor organizations to invest in this process?
That is the biggest challenge, because organizations tell us all the time that they are, really, really over capacity, really. They're overstretched and they're underfunded. And we're facing, a really challenging time at the moment with the cost of living crisis and so many other things that are going on. So that is the biggest challenge. But I think we show them examples that are really relevant to them. And by helping them, I suppose, work on a real challenge they're facing, what's quite incredible is you do start to see those like aha moments where they're like, oh, wow, this is really incredible. We get a lot of success from it because I think it's really a mindset. And actually, when you start seeing that go off for people, then they do value the time because they see that it's helping them. But at first, it can just be like another thing. And I think that's why we've, like when you look at the double diamond, then even when I explained it, you can imagine loads of people just switching off, like, what is this? This is not for me. This is. So it is about really thinking about how we can really support organizations on that journey and do it in a way that's very relevant to them.
And can you explain the word sprint as well? Because I've done them, but I know what they are, but again, it might be unfamiliar to some people.
Yeah, so I think it's just it's sprint. It's a short period of time, so it's quite exciting. I think the word sprint, because it says that we're going to be thinking of a problem here, and in 8 weeks' time, you're going to have a solution. I mean, sprints can be really, really short. I think we use that language because it sounds fun, exciting. You're going to go on something really exciting, but really it just means a period of time that you've set aside to have a problem and work through it and come up with something. Yeah,
there's a great book that our colleague in Manchester, Bex recommended to me about sprints. Jake Knapp. Did it come from Google? I can't remember anyway. Yeah.
I think it's come from Google. That's my understanding. Is that they started with the design sprints. And now we're sort of using them in lots of different ways. You also hear like hackathons. Maybe there's similarities in that as well.
The sprints that I've been involved in have been more dedicated periods of time concentrating on one thing, or maybe I suppose there are similarities. I suppose that language hasn't been that common to our sector for as long as it has been maybe to people familiar with the public sector. So it's still something that we're getting our heads around. Hence the reason for like UK Charity Camp later this week, which we referred to earlier in the program. It's happening in Birmingham. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm going to be there.
Oh, fantastic. So am I. So brilliant. Yeah, that's the sprint book. That's the one that I have. How to solve big problems and test new ideas in just 5 days. So it's a good one. I can recommend that one.
And I think you're allowed to choose a different number of days if you want.
Yeah, just a suggestion. Yeah, it's good to see more people in our sector getting into think that way of thinking. Sorry, my screen is not behaving itself very well today. Sorry about that. Ariel, I just wanted to refer back to some notes I'd made. So when we have guests on the show in previous times, we usually ask them about how they get started in their digital career. So if you don't mind kind of going back in time not too far back for you, obviously, as for some of the rest of us. But kind of what's your kind of history of your time in tech?
So it's quite it's quite an interesting one, really, because I didn't go into tech, and I still find that term actually doesn't feel like me. I find tech a funny word, which just does not describe me, I feel, as a person at all. And I think that's my assumption I put on people who are maybe techie. So I actually I was studying radio at university. So always been into like theatre, performance, creating stuff, I suppose. Went down the radio route. But also at the same time as studying, I was working in the community doing youth work. So I was using my radio skills to support young people to create tracks like singing, rapping, that sort of stuff. And so when I left uni and I was working as a broadcast journalist, freelance, I just saw this job come up. I didn't know what the third sector even was. And I saw this brilliant job come up at Promo Cymru, where I still am, which was it said they needed someone with both digital sort of experience, but also youth work to run this online magazine for young people. So the idea was that it's a digital platform where young people can get information, advice, support, and participate in. So it's quite innovative as well, I think, this platform. And this was about 13 years ago. And I just thought, wow, I've got digital experience and I've got youth work experience. And that's how I ended up doing what I do. And I just joined this really incredible organization who were really, we've just been constantly changing what we do, and always really thinking about coming from, I suppose, that community perspective. Youth work, I mean, it's not just youth work we actually work across the sector, but really coming from, I suppose, that perspective, and how do you match that with digital? And I think that's what makes us unique, because we're a charity and we're a social enterprise ourselves. So most of our staff have either youth work experience, like come from some sort of community type youth work role, plus a digital role.
Okay. And you obviously had to navigate lockdown. What changes did you have to make during that, and what's happened since?
So I think luckily for us as an organization, working online wasn't a challenge. So it was very, very easy for us in terms of our like internal staff to just be able to start working from home, because most of us were already doing that quite a lot. For example, we actually run a helpline, which is a youth helpline in Wales called Make Cymru. Young people can phone, text, instant message, and get information online. And that service already, all of our service was operated virtually. They had office space, so our teams would come into the office because it was nice to be like with people, but all of it was already remote. So for example, to get onto the helpline, the team just have to log into their phones and log into their computers, and basically it's like a virtual call center. So that was already in place, and the rest of us were already used to being able to work online. But I suppose what changed was the people that we're working with. So the third sector organizations that we're working with, us being able to actually support them and engage them, really changed, because there was such varying level of skill out there. So we started putting on these video, sort of like everybody was, these like webinars, I suppose, and we did it straight away within about a week. And the first sessions we were doing, and we had hundreds of people were attending them at first, now it's like we're all a bit zoomed out, but we had hundreds of people attending. And our first sessions were genuinely like, how do you use Zoom to share your screen? How do you use breakout rooms? How do you use whiteboard? Because our organizations that we usually support were not used to working in that way. And so that was really interesting. So we were doing these like weekly sessions where everyone was coming along, and I suppose we were just like sharing all of these skills that, wow, isn't it amazing you can use digital whiteboards? And now nearly everybody's sort of using these tools. And actually, as we've gone on, now we're teaching very, very different things. in our webinars, like about how you might now experiment with ChatGPT, which is like moving our community along.
So is that the media literacy that we refer to in our email exchanges as well, teaching media literacy to people, to young people?
Yeah, so we do lots of different things. So we support organizations themselves. So the webinars are really aimed at organizations themselves and how they can support their communities better. But we also do direct work with young people. And we're doing a project at the moment with Ofcom, where they're trying to think about how do we best teach media literacy skills to young people. We are working again in an area of Wales called Gwent. We work there quite a lot because we have a centre there called the Ebervale Institute, which is a community centre, community hub. And with so much different activity there, like we have people can come in, like there's a cafe in there. We have a repair cafe as well. We have a pantry, like a food bank running out of there, all sorts of different things. And so one of the projects we've started to look at was around thinking about how you could, in, I suppose, a youth workspace, teach young people about media literacy. Because in school, you know, I suppose you have them there, like they have to be there. Whereas in a youth work setting, you know, they're maybe there to play pool and have fun. And but at the same time, how do we teach them these skills? So we've started to do a project around algorithms. And we're just at the sort of testing phase really on thinking about, you know, what's an engaging way that we can teach young people about algorithms and what's really going on. And yeah, so that's what that project's about.
And how are you defining media literacy?
So we've specifically gone into algorithms for our project. So I suppose media literacy is about how we are literate when we are when we're reading things, when we're searching for things, information, things that are coming out from different news sources, media sources, like how are we actually, I suppose, thinking about that information and aware of who the source is, and I suppose what's that intention behind it, so that we can decide on how accurate that information is. But there's so many different elements to it now, because I suppose things like algorithms and stuff like that all fall under this, because what we're seeing online is actually becoming a shape of how we're interacting online. So we're actually in control of this space we're creating. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. You know, the more things that I'm doing and liking, and then my world is becoming very Ariel focused. But actually, you know, Pauline's world will be very different when you're online. And we're trying to sort of empower young people to think about that they can control this. You know, that we could actually create our online spaces if we understood how this stuff worked a bit better. You know, so in a way, don't just click because you think, oh, that looks like, I don't know, a scary video of, you know, these things you sort of see in your feed, and you click because it looks quite engaging. But by doing that, you're going to get more of that. Do you want more of that? Or do you want more of like a happy, positive space that makes you feel good? You know, I think that's the sort of stuff we're trying to look at.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic, and something I'd like to know more about, because I know that you know, this is a very more developing field, and we're just going to want to know more and more about it. I went to a really good SCVO in Scotland, did a very good DigiShift session recently on big tech, looking at what they call predatory media advertising. You know, I mean, if you could scare yourself really, you know, looking at all the coverage of what's going on out there. And yeah, I mean, we've known for a long time, I suppose, that when we think services are online or free, it's because we are the product, and they're mining our data, and they are, you know, the number of data points, even for a young person now, is phenomenal. And I think if you're able to educate people about that without scaring them, then that's a skill. So hats off to you for doing that, and I'm sure you are able to do that. Are there kind of looking forward, and what kind of projects are you would you like to do if you had, if money was no object or kind of resources were no object? What kind of things would you like to see developing in the next few years?
I mean, us as an organization, we really want to like partner with more and more youth organizations and really, match that youth work with digital. Like, it's so powerful when the two things go together. So making sure you can still develop youth work and deliver those really powerful principles and important principles of making sure young people have a voice, that they feel that they can participate in things, that there's accessibility built into everything. We really want to partner with more organizations to help them to deliver, I think, youth work in this new way. The sector's doing really, really well, like, especially because I think there's a lot of young people in the youth work sector as well, and they're sort of youth workers are used to listening to and working with young people. So there's lots of new ideas coming through, but it's also a huge challenge, isn't it, to like even figure out how actually you respond to that. How do you deliver your services in that way? So yeah, we want to do more partnership work. And another big thing that's we're very, very passionate about, and that's hopefully happening in Wales, is we are being part of, at the moment, sort of thinking in Wales that we need a national youth information service. So it looks like it is going to be going ahead. There's been lots of work going on over the last few years, sort of putting recommendations into the Welsh government saying, like, we really need young people to be accessing digital youth information in a better way. And so, yeah, we're hoping to be part of that, developing what that might look like for Wales in the future, so that actually being a young person in Wales could look very different. When you need something, you should just be able to get it. We've got the technologies there, but actually, making sure that they can get that support when they need it, will really make a big difference for young people in Wales.
So what you're talking about there, how would that compare with something like the Young Scot program in Scotland? Is that the sort of thing that you have in mind, or is it different in some way?
It's absolutely. We love Young Scot. Actually, we interviewed Reed recently for a podcast that we put together, and Young Scot are often part of our conversations. It's really amazing, the work that's gone on. And actually in Wales, unfortunately, we did have a National Youth Information Service many years ago, but because of funding, it closed, and it was really innovative and pretty incredible. And unfortunately, because of funding, it shut down. So we've now sort of maybe fallen behind a bit. So it would be probably similar to Young Scot, but again, it's going through that process to work out how differently would that work absolutely. In Wales.
No, the thing about Young Scot is it's been going for such a long time. I mean, it's been going so long. It was invented when I was at school in the 80s. So it really has a long pedigree. And I'm always impressed by how they've kind of been a bit ahead of the online game at almost at every stage over the last 10 or 20 years. So yeah, it's great that I'm sorry to hear that Wales had one and then shut it down. That's very, very disappointing.
It's a real shame, because it was, again, people not really looking and building things for the future. We had we actually ran it, Promo Cymru ran it. So we had like in every local authority in Wales had their own youth editorial group who worked with their local authority to create information, put it online. And then we had this national network, which all of the local information had their own sites, which fed into a national site. So it was pretty incredible that this was like 7 years ago. And we had over sort of 50,000, visitors to the different sites every month. And really now I know so much more about iterative design. It was like, we really had something that if that had continued to develop, maybe we'd be in the same position in Wales as Young Scot are now, because they've had that constant investment to keep developing and trialing. And they're brilliant. So we do learn a lot from them.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show, Ariel. Thank you so much for giving us some of your valuable time. today. We hope that we can maintain the contact and perhaps have you on the show again in the future. If people want to contact you after the show, where's the best place to find you online?
Yes, so you can find me on Twitter, or I hate to say X. It's at Little Harry, or you can email me Arielle, so ARIELLE @promo.cymru. So feel free to email me or contact me on Twitter, whatever.
And those details will appear on the description of this video on YouTube.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Arielle, and look forward to seeing you this week in Birmingham. Fantastic.
Yeah, see you soon.
Okay,
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a good week.
Have a good week.
Bye. Bye.